Hello and welcome to this introduction video for our upcoming series on Netrunner. Let's play Netrunner. And by our, I mean mine. There's only one of me. If you've never heard of Netrunner, it is a living card game or a non-random collectible card game, I would say. It involves two different sides. The game plays very differently depending on which side you're on. Either you are a corporation and you are evil, or you are a runner, which is like a hacker, and you're trying to hack into the corporation. The corporation side spends more time on defense, while the runner side spends all their time on offense, but the corporation can kill the runner as well. So it can be a little bit of both, but they play very differently. I'm not going to go too much into how the game is played. I'm going to go through a couple of cards and say what things do more or less for each side, so you can follow along at least. But I'm not going to go too far into the actual rules of the game. If you want to learn how to play Android Netrunner, you can come here to the Fantasy Flight website. I'll put a link in the description. And they actually have a tutorial video that you can watch that tells you all about Android Netrunner. It's pretty fun and pretty good. Um, it does a good job of teaching the basics, although there's some minor things that might happen during our games that you'll be like, I don't understand. That's fine. Netrunner is not the easiest game to get into or to understand, but I enjoy it so much because of all the different possibilities that it has for you to be able to do and how deck building works, and it's just fantastic. So if you want to follow along a little bit better, you can come here to this tutorial, watch the video, or if you already know how to play Netrunner, just go straight into the matches. I'm going to go over a little bit of just how the game plays. We're going to come over here to my decks. This site is Netrunner DB. It's a deck builder site, so you can go on here to build your decks, to look at the new cards and all this kind of cool stuff. My internet was very slow there for some reason. Here we have all my decks. The one we're going to be playing in the first video here is Edward Mill. That's the name of the deck I gave him, playing Edward Kim. So each deck has a identity. Well, actually, there's two kinds of decks. Let's go over runner decks first, since that's the style of deck, or that's the side I'm going to be playing. So runner decks, you choose an identity, and your identity has a couple of things on it. It has one, which faction you belong to. You can see that all of these people are orange because they belong to the orange faction, otherwise known as anarchs. But there's also the criminal faction. There is the Shaper faction. And then there's a couple little mini factions as well in the card pool at this moment. I am picking Edward Kim. Edward Kim has a couple of things on his card. He has a link. This helps against traces. If you're not familiar with Netrunner, again, a trace is when it's like when they're trying to trace a phone call or something. Only instead of spending time, you spend money to have the trace do better. And a link lets you spend less money against the trace. He also has every runner in the game also has this little thing on the bottom right, which is their their minimum deck size. So 45. Edward Kim's deck has to be at least 45 cards big, not including him as the identity. And then there's the influence, and influence is the amount of points you can spend on not orange or neutral cards. So influence lets you pull cards from other factions that you might want to use, but you can't use more than 15 points worth of influence. He also has his identity, which is a natural. It doesn't really matter in most. I don't think it matters right now. And then there's his ability, which is trash the first operation you access each turn at no cost. An operation, if you've ever played Magic the Gathering or any kind of card game, it's a kind of card where you use it and then it does what it says and then it goes away. So he lets me trash those things for free. Let's take a look at some of the other things that Edward Kim can have, the other kind of card types. So like I said, operations are the things that you play and they go away, but that's on the corporate side. Corporate, those things are called operations. Runner side, those things are called events. But they're pretty much the same thing. They do a thing and go away. We also have, I don't know if it's going to oh, it does show up, thank goodness. So this is what an event looks like. It has a cost. You pay these in credits and you do the stuff. Then there's also hardware. My deck actually has no hardware, but hardware is hardware. It's stuff that does things for you, just helps you out. Resources are very similar to hardware, except for that resources are a little bit more vulnerable to being destroyed by the corporation. If the corporation finds out where you live, they can for some reason destroy your genetic DNA, and you can no longer cook pancakes anymore. So that's a thing. Uh, then so we have hardware. The other type of card for runners is programs, and programs are the things that get you into the corporation servers. So there's things like Cujo here. Cujo is an icebreaker. He breaks their ice. Their ice are their defenses. And there's a bunch of different programs and things. You can come onto Netrunner DB and check what they all do. So let's go back here. We're going to go ahead and cancel the edits on this, and we'll go ahead and look at a corporation. Now, the corporations have the same thing with the identity. They pick an identity, gives them some sort of special ability. For instance, this one says the first time each turn the runner draws a card, I gain a credit. Credits are good. That's money. Money you need to pay for things. But the corporation also has things called agendas. Agendas are points. They're what we're trying to score. This is worth 1 point, and it has a 3 cost, or a 3 advancement cost. In order for us to score this card, we basically just have to look at it. We have to run into a server and go, I found it. It's right here. It's mine. Give me it. So that's how we steal agendas as a runner. For the corporation, though, they have to put it into a server and then advance it 3 times, which means they'll spend $1 and one of their clicks. A click is like an action, and you only get so many actions on your turn. So they'll spend those actions in order to try and advance this thing 3 times. And when they do that, they can score it for 1 point, and they also get this ability which says whenever the runner jacks out, do a net damage, which would kind of not do anything, but whatever. So that's an agenda. They also have operations, which I've told you about already, which are just things that happen, and they have little cute drafts on them. You pay the cost, you do them, and then you get the effect. They go away. They also have upgrades. Actually, let's go with assets first. Assets are other things they can put in a server that do stuff. Sometimes those things can be traps, like snare, so they can put a card down and you think it's an agenda and you run at it and you look at it and you're like, oh crap, I just take 3 damage and take a tag. A tag means the corporation knows where you live and they're going to blow up your face. So assets can be traps, but they can also be things like giving you money or other special abilities. Like Turtlebacks here says gain a credit whenever you create a server as the corporation, so you can get more money. Or it could be something like, let's see, your Genetics Pavilion just says the runner cannot draw more than 2 cards during his or her turn. So that could put a hamper on my Edward deck because I draw a lot of cards. So yeah, so it has different things like that. Then let's see here. The last thing is, we have upgrades. Upgrades go into servers to protect them, similar to ice, but they actually go in the server and then they can somehow stop it or do some special thing. Like Caprice here. Caprice says, even if I pass all their defenses, then we do a little game thingy, and if I lose that game, then I get kicked out. It's really annoying. Very, very annoying. Caprice there. And then the last thing they have is ice, which are the things that defend all those servers. So ice have a few cool things to them. Let's look at an easy one here. We'll look at Neural Katana, basic kind of ice. So they have a couple things. First of all, they're sideways because they go sideways in front of the servers. They have a cost, so in order to res or turn face up this card, the corporation has to spend some money here, so they'll spend 4 credits. And then it has a strength. In order for my icebreakers to interact with their ice, I have to have a higher or equal to strength to their ice. And it has a type. It has a sentry. Sentry means that this is one of, well, there's 3 main types of ice. There's sentry, barrier, and code gate. So this one's a sentry, so I would need a sentry icebreaker in order to kill it. Or not kill it, but to break the subroutines. These are called subroutines, these little enter things. If I have no way to break them, then I have to do this thing. In this case, take 3 damage. And if I take too much damage, I die. So that would be bad. So this is what ice does. Some ice will just hurt you like those sentries, but other ones will keep you out like this one does, hurt you, and then it ends the run, so I can't get into that server. Other times they do kind of weird things, like lockdown here says I cannot draw any more cards for the remainder of the turn. Sometimes they're trap ice, which don't have any, so like the regular ice types, so they're not a code gate, a sentry, or a barrier. So in this case, I wouldn't be able to break this, and then I would just take a net damage. Um, there's also kind of weird ice like Chum. Chum just affects the next piece of ice, makes it stronger, and then does damage if the runner breaks all the subroutines on that. So there's a bunch of different kinds of ice, and you can play with them and put different things in. You can see for mine, I didn't put very many damagey pieces of ice in here. I just have Kamainu. um, Kamainu being, if they run into Kamainu and can't break it, then they're going to lose their entire hand, which kind of sucks for them. So anyways, so that's the different kind of cards in the game. During the first game I'll play, I'm probably not going to be very tutorial. So again, if you want to know how to play the game, this tutorial is very helpful. But hopefully you know the different kinds of cards now, and you can kind of see what's going on a little bit in the game if you actually watch it. So anyways, I hope you like this this little introduction. Well, I guess you're probably not gonna like the introduction. You're like, why aren't you playing the game yet? But yeah, if you haven't skipped ahead already to the first game, go ahead and do that now, or watch the tutorial and then go do that. Again, the link to this site and Jinteki.net, which is the site that I'm going to be playing the games on, are going to be in the description. And if you have any comments or questions on Netrunner, you can go ahead and do that, and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. All right, well, I'll go ahead and see you in the first game, and I hope you have fun.